Good morning. My name is Samantha Mirabal. I'm with Melco's application team. We're doing our design shop talk today. See what questions you might have, try to get some of them answered. If you have questions while we're live, please type them in on the chats. Don't send them privately. I don't see those. Hi, First Fruit Corbin. Thanks for joining today. Yeah, I don't see any text sent privately, so just type them in directly in the chat. I have another monitor set up over here, and I will, if you see me looking off to the side, that's what I'm looking at. All right, so I have a few questions that were sent in ahead of time. I'll start with those. Again, if you have any, please type them in, and I'll try not to pop right off after the questions. That way you've got some time to type them in. All right, so I'll go ahead and get going. Is this software compatible with Windows 11? Yes, it is. Now, if you're unaware, I just like pointing out resources to folks. So let me show you something just to give you some things. If you go to melco-service.com and you click on the FAQ, you can find a lot of information here. So if I just type in Windows 11, you can see what the Windows 11 compatibility issues are, right? So if there are any, if you're looking for older softwares, things like that. So this site has a lot of good information on there. For the design shop talks, if you want to look for, a specific topic we might have covered, you can kind of dig through these and do a Control F and search. So there's a lot of information out here to try to make your life a little easier and try to get answers to your questions when, after hours, essentially. So when I'm not here to ask questions of, or the tech support folks are closed, that sort of thing. So there's a lot of good resources out there for you to be aware of. So just keep that in mind. Where do I find the designs that came with the program? All right, so when you install the software on your C drive, right in the main folder, there's this thing, designs. There they all are, right? So the legacy ones that I often pull up, this is what originally came with the older softwares. When you have the newer softwares, they're now broken up into different things. You also have this self-help training resources that give you some sample files and handouts and all kinds of good information that you can take a look at, as well as different visuals and the actual handouts that if you do the on-site training where a trainer comes to you, those are the handouts that we use as an outline, so those sorts of things. So that's where you'd find them all. So on your C drive, go to the designs folder, and there's a ton of files in here. Okay. I've shown you how to add offset outlines. You can do that with complex fills. Yes, that's the only feature it's actually available to, which you note here, not available to other types. The fabric shrinks just enough to leave a gap, so I want to offset it and make it slightly bigger before cutting with my silhouette. Right now you convert to a complex fill, do an offset. So yeah, you can use the border tool, so that's one. So let's see. Let's draw something. So actually I want that back. Let's go to custom shapes. I don't know. Let's say we want that shape as an applique, so something bigger. I'm going to center it. Let's say we want this to be an applique, right? So typically, if we're going to make it an applique file, you can hold the shift key down and click on the walk, and that will give me a walk stitch. So that would be my placement. Copy, paste, give it another color. I usually like the tack down to be a bean stitch. That's a personal preference. Copy, paste, hold shift, click on the single line center, and I can make that, let's say 30 points wide and a tackle edge. If tackle is that stitch type is dependent on what level of software you have. So if you don't have tackle, you can always use a satin stitch with the density of, first I gotta go into the properties of that, turn off the auto density, and let's make that closer to 17. It's not the same, so it's slanted, it's not a tackle, but it does the same effect, right? So it'll get you close. And then after that one, copy paste. Let's make that one a regular satin, and we'll make the density, okay. Make the density 4 and the width 40. Okay, so now I have an applique file. I can delete the fill. I just use that as a basis. I got my walk, my bean. I don't need two beans, so I could delete that. my tackle stitch, which holds the fabric down, and then my satin stitch all the way around. All right. So your original question was, how do I make this bigger? Right. So you were right. You have to convert it to a complex fill. Or what I usually do is hold the shift key down, hold this down, and convert and add a vector. Because you can do this that way, it's simulating my fabric anyway, so I have a use for that element. And then I can do object, offset, outline, make that whatever if you're cutting whatever points, however many points you want it bigger, right? When I was doing stuff with my laser, the kerf was 4 points, so I would do around 5 or 7, those sorts of things. So once you have that, again, you can do shift click, and that gives you the shape you would want to save off. It's an SVG, right? So that one's larger. All I did was copy and paste it. And then you can do file, save as, and save it as an SVG, right? So you can do that sort of thing, and that will save it off as your cut file. So trying to think what else. So that's how I would suggest doing it, is I usually just mock it up with the vector anyway, and that way it's kind of serving dual purpose for me. It's making it look like I have fabric here. I can color it whatever I want. Plus, now I've got a shape that I can offset and use that to create my cut file from. Okay. Was that all the question? Let me see. Make sure I didn't miss something. Yeah, so you could also use the border tool. So I just prefer offset. It's more uniform. You can use border and then tell it how much larger you want it to go and create borders that way, whether it's a single border, 2 borders, that sort of thing. So for instance, border, you can tell it to be convex, single, whatever. It's creating a border on both sides of it. So I do what you do. I just use the complex or a fill element and then do offsets from that. All right. What other questions might you guys have? I saw, while you guys are typing, if anyone's, I saw something earlier asking for help. So it wasn't on one of my little things, but I wanted to point it out. So there are questions. Hi, Colleen. Thanks for joining today. Ah, Lorena, welcome. So I saw a question on how to prevent gaps in your sewing here on these segments where the stitch direction is changing on different letters. So a lot of that is going to be associated with your pull compensation settings as well as underlay, right? So you're going to get more, you're going to end up with more issues if your pull comp isn't there. So adding some pull compensation makes all those overlaps be a little bit more, right? So typically 1 to 3 points is plenty. I tend to use at least 1 or 2 points over it. Okay. Another would be to make sure you have decent underlay. If you don't have underlay, that's going to allow everything to shift more. So when you go start putting your top stitch in, it's all going to move. So you're going to end up with gaps you don't expect, particularly on the case that one had was with a hat. So those would be my 2 main suggestions. Make sure your underlay is right, and then make sure you have some pull compensation on it so that you're getting your overlap in there so you don't see those splits. All right, let's see. We have some questions typed in. I'm struggling when using small lettering. I do not want to tie off after each letter. How do you keep it from cutting it? Okay, so that's just in the settings. So good question. So let's see. Micro block font. Let's make it small, 0.2, and hello. All right. So if you go into the properties here, under the tie in and tie off, this is what's defining when it's going to do trims, when it's going to, cut the thread, move to the next letter, and go again. So how you read this is auto trim. It's right now I have it set to 32. What that means, so if I look at this, you'll notice there's connectors between all these. And I'll be honest, some of these I don't like. I would change this, but I'll change that in a minute just to show you. So right now it starts here, it ends here, this letter. So the green circle shows you where it starts, the red X shows you where it ends. If I then click on the next letter, that black X, you'll see this one starts where that green circle is. The propeller that you see now right here is where the previous thing stopped. Okay, so where am I going with this? So auto trim, there's a number right here. Auto trim length of 32. What that number means is from that propeller, so from where the previous element ended to where the next one starts, if that distance is less than whatever number you have here, it's going to leave the connecting stitch, so it's going to leave that jump, and it's going to keep sewing. If it's bigger than that number, it's going to insert a tie, it's going to trim, move to the next spot, and trim, right? So if I drag this around, notice it's gone now, and now there's a trim right here. That's because the distance from where this letter ends to where this one starts is now bigger than 32 points. Okay, so if yours are all trimming where like it's trimming between all these letters and you don't like it, that's cool. Come in here and make this number bigger. All right. The bigger it is, the longer the connecting stitch it has, right? So this one here, from the E, it ends there, to the L. Hello, Jamie. Thanks for joining today. And Patty and Sharon. Thanks. All right. So if I measure that, that is 28 points. So it's going to do a connecting stitch there because it's 28 points and my setting is 32. All right. So if I don't like that, I need to make this. So let's say I like this one. I don't like that one. Well, I can go trim it out. I can come into here and tell it to do closest point. And now it moved the starts and stops so that they're smaller, right? So when you say closest point on something, it rearranges all your starts and stops to put them as close as possible to one another to help minimize the size of that connecting stitch, right? So you can see that's super small, that's super small. I mean, in reality, no one's going to notice any of that. Okay, so Sharon, does that help any? It's all in their settings under this tie in and tie off. So the larger this number, the more it's just going to drag thread around and not trim. Okay. Let me know if that's not helpful. Can you go over pulling a design from a website, converting to a file such as a hot air balloon? Yeah, I don't have any. Unfortunately. All right, let me think. Pulling files off the internet, I can't do live because I have to find files that I'm licensed for. So let me see if I have some art that I can do, which would be the same. Yeah, I don't have a hot air balloon. Well, all right. So what you do is you go on the webs on wherever you're pulling stuff for, and download the file you want. So let's say you download a bitmap. I personally suggest trying to get vector files. It makes life easier. But once you have that, now it's a matter of digitizing it, right? So whatever the file is, you would then go through and you can either use this graphic to conversion assistant, right? Where you can either just tell it to auto convert and see what happens. You can step through it, which gives you more control. I'll be honest, I'm kind of lazy. I'll do the auto convert and see what it does, and if I like it, move on. If not, I'll go step through it. Or I'll do something like this. I'll look at it and go, okay, well, I would change where all these splits are, so I don't hate it. I would just want to modify it, right? So in that case, I would come through here and like these, I don't like at all. So I would take these guys and right click on them and say operation convert to vector. Now I have them as vectors. If I turn this off, you'll see it. So I've got these two guys as vectors. So now I can go, all right, let's just do it as a single stitch or something like that, right? So I can then do it myself. And I don't quite love that, but you know, I can modify that with stitch type, right? I can turn those into fills. I can go in and tell it to, instead of being auto, let's do a common auto split. Then the stitch direction on that's, I'm not loving it, so I'm going to change it. So, you know, it got me 3/4 of the way there, maybe, right? So it got me the shape formed, and now I can go through and go, all right, how do I want to modify it to suit what I want? So maybe I don't want this to be a satin, I want it to be a fill, right? So I can play with it and now easily modify it to see what looks better to me, right? These don't match, so I'd want to change that, those sorts of things. So it's really, you know, you can do that guy right there, which is the graphic to conversion assistant. So if you have a decent quality art, that works well. You can also come through and do stitch graphic reasons, right? So every time I click on this, it will find the outlines on those elements and create. You see that? I kind of like how it did that, so I like that. So I can use a stitch graphic region. So that's another tool within your arsenal, right? So it's really, how do you want to do it? I'll be honest, I prefer manually digitizing it for the most part. So I will usually, so just an example, because I don't like tracing things. If I don't like it, I'll do the stitch graphic region, go automatically convert to vector, and then now from the vector, I'll go through and add splice lines and stitch directions and whatever else I'm wanting. So let's say maybe I don't want these holes in here, which I do, but let's just pretend I don't. Then I can delete those, and now I've got this nice fill region. So the only difference between my vector fill and a complex fill is a stitch direction, right? So I can do that. So it's really finding whatever art you want, saving it off, and then from there you would do either a conversion or you start tracing it. So if I'm going to digitize this manually, what would I do? Well, I'm just going to do the center body. So I would do complex. Do I want to do a complex? No, let's do it this way. All right, so let's say I do this. I'm going to trace this guy using, all right, so that's my satin stitch using this complex, using the column 1, and then maybe I'm going to do a fill with a circle, click, click, hold my shift key. Now I have a circle. I can make that a satin and add some offset. Cool. So now I've got the body. I can make it purple, right? So I tend to do everything manually because it's usually just as quick for me to trace it as it is to, to do things like this rather than do the auto convert, but it's personal preference, right? So you can go through, oops, backspace. Let's not go so aggressively. Let's try that again. There we go. All right, so that guy, I'd want to be black and make it, add some pull offset so it fixes that area there. That's cool, right? And I like things symmetrical, so I'd usually copy, paste, mirror, and then rotate this guy around and just move it over onto the other one so I don't have to do it twice, right? There we go. So I tend to do stuff like that just to make life easier. Like on this butterfly, I'd do half of it, and then once I'm happy with it, I'd mirror it to the other. So for a hot air balloon, that was your original example. I know there's one on here, but it's already digitized. Hot air balloon, let's see. Let's make it where it, I don't like the colors. All right. Anyway, so in this case, you would have your art, and if you look at how this one was done, you can see it, you just kind of build your way up. So this has a solid fill, and then they just put the other stuff on top of it. So you would just go through and either go through each color using your stitch graphic region, or do a convert. But I will tell you, this black stuff, you're going to have, because it's all connected, you'll have better results tracing it all manually than, because you can control the trims, you can control the pathing of how it works your way around there, so that you don't have any trims, right? So that would just, for outlines and stuff, it's usually better just to do them yourself. So what other questions do we have? Does that help any, Patty? I can go If you still want to just do a balloon, I can pull one for next week. I just got to go find one that I have license for. All right. What other questions do we have? Let's see. Look through. Anyone type anything in? Not yet. Next week. Ah, awesome. Good. I'm glad that helped. All right. So next week we'll do this again on Thursday. So remember, if you still have questions, type them in. I'm just trying to run my mouth a minute in case someone's typing. I don't want to cut you off. If you have questions, so after hours when we're not live, anytime you think of it, you can come in and go to the form and submit it. It will be there, so next time we come around, it will be on the live. You don't have to remember to jump on the live or, oh, crud, I can't remember what that question is. That's fine. You've already submitted it. So as you think of them, type them in, and that way they'll be there. If you have multiple images to submit, you could submit multiple ones. It just goes to an Excel sheet that I can see all the submissions for. So make sure you send those in. We'll try to get those answered for you. I'll be back next Thursday. But short of that, if we don't have any other questions, I hope everyone's having a good summer. It is hot here in Florida. I'm always amazed. I've seen people running around at like 3 in the afternoon, like literally doing their exercise outside. And it gives me, I'm just like, ooh, it's 110 out. Really? We're doing that? More power to them. I'm not sure I could. All right, everyone. If that is all, I will call it a day, and I will talk to you again next week on Thursday. All right, everyone. Have a fantastic weekend, and I'll be back. Bye, everyone.